Welcome to the Bai Sing Lit's Children's Book Bazaar 2021. For today's event, we have a book sharing by the authors Ying and Pauline Lo. Let's welcome them to the show.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the book sharing of Journey to the West, Perils on Earth, and Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Brave Brothers, produced by World Scientific Education, presented as part of Singapore Children's Book Bazaar. My name is Serene from World Scientific Education, and I'm the facilitator of this conversation. Our conversation this evening centers around two Chinese classics that have been adapted for today's children under the Pop Lit for Kids series. This series takes classics and reimagines them into easy to read stories. Without further ado, let me introduce our authors. We have here with us Pauline Lo, author of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Brave Brothers. She is an award winning author with 30 years of writing experience. Pauline, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, I'm here today to present this book. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Brave Brothers is book one of the series, and please look out for book two and book three. Let's have fun for the next half an hour.
Next, we have here Ningping, the author of two Journey to the West books under the Pop Lit for Kids series. Ningping, would you like to say hi?
Hello everyone. Here are the Journey to the West books. They are a children's adaptation in English of the Chinese classic Journey to the West. The first book is Chaos in Heaven. The second book is Perils on Earth, which we are launching today. And there is a third book in the series entitled Enlightenment, which will be released next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Yingping. Thank you, Pauline. The Pop Lit for Kids series seek to highlight key exciting stories from classics such as Journey to the West and Romance of the Three Kingdoms and bring them to today's children. At this point, I would like to ask Yingping, what are your key considerations and inspirations to picking the best stories from the original classic Journey to the West?
Thank you, Serene. I think before I answer that question, I thought it might be helpful to those who are not so familiar with the book if I give a quick explanation of what this book is about. So basically, Journey to the West is one of the four great Chinese classics. It tells the story of a pilgrim named Tripitaka who journeys from China to the Western paradise in India to receive a set of sacred scriptures from Buddha. Now, the Journey to the West story is so interesting because Tripitaka is accompanied by several disciples with magical powers, and they have all sorts of exciting adventures along the way. Now, the original Journey to the West was written about 500 years ago, so it's really long and full of details, whereas my children's version is, of course, a lot shorter. So, a key consideration I had to select the stories was that I wanted to select stories that today's children will find most interesting, but which will also still be able to give them a good understanding of what the original Journey to the West was about. So for the first book, Chaos in Heaven, it was really quite easy selecting the stories as there was a very clear storyline that follows the Monkey King Sun Wukong's early years. You know, how he learned his magical skills, where he got his famous weapon, how he created chaos in heaven and then was squished under a mountain by Buddha. Right? And then we move on to Tripitaka's story, where the goddess Guan Yin requested him to bring back the Buddhist scriptures from the Western paradise. And then he collected his disciples, you know, the famous Sun Wukong, Zhu Bajie, and Sha Wujing. So the first book was quite easy for me to write in that sense. But in the second book, Perils on Earth, the whole bunch of them start on the actual journey to the West. And this was where it was more challenging for me to decide what to include in my retelling because the pilgrims have so many adventures along the way. So I tried to choose the adventures that are the most familiar and popular. So those that people tend to remember when they think about Journey to the West, such as the pilgrims' encounters with demons like Lady Whitebone or Bai Gu Furen, and Red Boy, also known as Hong Hai. Red Boy especially is a character that I think many people are familiar with. And in book three, which will come out next year, I included famous characters like the Blue Demon King, which is Niu Mo Wang, Princess Iron Fan, which is Tie Shan Gongzu, and the seven spider spirits, the Zhuzhu Jing. So I also tried to make sure that the episodes I chose have some sort of variety so that it'll be more interesting for the children to read. So, for example, when I read the original Journey to the West, I was amazed at how many times Tripitaka actually gets kidnapped by demons. I mean, seriously, he is so disobedient. He doesn't listen to Wukong's advice, and it really serves him all right that he gets kidnapped all the time. But when I chose the adventures for my adaptation, I wanted to make sure that not every single one um, is about Tripitaka getting kidnapped, so that there's some variety. And I was also surprised to read in the original that Wukong often has to get help from Guan Yin and other deities to fight the demons. And because we always think that Wukong, the Monkey King, is supposed to be so powerful, right? But I guess even the most powerful person does better with teamwork. So he often gets help from the other deities. So in my retelling, I made sure to include some stories where he gets help and some stories where he didn't need help, so that they're not all the same. And I also made sure to include some stories that had no demons at all, like the one about Jubajie eating the ginseng fruit, which is quite a humorous story. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Ningping. It's very interesting to know that these stories have so much fun in them, although they've written so long ago. So Pauline, what about you? How do you go about structuring the adapted story and picking the most exciting parts for these young readers?
Thank you. Well, guys, you must understand that the original Romance of the Three Kingdoms, in Chinese, it is called 三国演义. Well, it's written in traditional Chinese and it has 120 chapters. And like Yingping's book, Journey to the West, this book has a lot of characters as well. There's actually 1,000 over characters. Oh my! How do I choose from the 1,000 characters who to focus on and what story should I focus on? Yes, but it is very obvious from the very beginning when you start reading 三国演义, it is a tale about heroes. Heroes. What is the meaning of that? Is a hero a person who fights well? A hero is a person who always wins in a battle? Or is a hero somebody who, is always top on the popularity poll? Yeah, everybody gets on his Instagram. Is that what a hero is? Through my stories, I hope to be able to show what a true hero is and what is he tackling. He's tackling actually villainy. For example, in chapter 3, we have the main characters who are Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei. They are the three brave brothers of the book. Well, they come across this man, and this man was very good in battle, and everybody looked up to him. Everybody says that this man is very promising. He will definitely come out tops one day. And Zhang Fei was, he had stars in his eyes. But Liu Bei was very wise. He could see past the glam, he could see past the glory, and he knew exactly what type of a person this man was. His name is Cao Cao, and when you read through the book, you will realize that, oh, he is the true villain of uh, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. And in chapter 3, what happened was there was an old man, Uncle Boshu, who sheltered Cao Cao in his time of trouble. However, Cao Cao repaid him by killing him when he wanted to protect himself. And the question was then posed to the readers: is this what heroism is? Or is this the act of a true blue villain? So, yes, so throughout the book, you will see that there are a lot of these kind of choices that are being posed, and the decisions the characters make, and the decisions really show their character. Well, I hope that the children will continue to read through the book and enjoy the stories, and from there to learn about heroism. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline, for those insights. Very interesting indeed. Now, given that these classics have been written such a long time ago, and why would kids these days take interest and love these stories? How are they timeless? Ningping, would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Yes, I think kids would still love Journey to the West because it is actually a very humorous book. No, I found that in a lot of children's adaptations of Journey to the West, the humor tends to be left out. I think maybe because the books try to cram as much of the action and adventure in as possible, so there wasn't really space for all the extra stuff. So I wanted to bring back the humor, and many of the jokes in my book were actually from the original text, but of course I had to modernize them a little bit, and I added in a lot more of my own as well. And I also threw in a humorous poem in every chapter. So every chapter has one poem. And that's because I noticed that in the original text, there's a poem every few pages. Now, I know kids will not like those poems because they are too long, too detailed, and too complex. So I wrote my own that would appeal to them more, I hope, and made each one a little bit funny or a little bit silly so that the kids will enjoy the story more. And the adventures that the pilgrims experience are also very exciting. They meet lots of different demons and encounter danger in different situations. So there's really non-stop action all the way. And I think kids like that kind of non-stop action. And to match the action, the illustrations in both books are very well done, very lively and colorful. The first one was illustrated by Charlotte Ng, and the second one by Hu Jia. So both did very good jobs in making the illustrations very attractive, and I think it just made the whole book very visually attractive. So, and another thing about the books that I think kids might like is that everyone has about 2 or 3 articles that explain a little bit more about the books. And these sections are called Understanding the Story. They are inserted between the chapters at appropriate points in the story. So I try to think of interesting facts to share with the readers that will help children understand the story and characters better. So, for example, in Chaos to Heaven, after we have read a few chapters about Sun Wukong, then we may ask ourselves, who is this monkey called Sun Wukong? So I explain in that article where the original author might have got inspiration for this character. And another article I added is Journey to the West a true story? Because many people don't know that it's actually based on a real pilgrimage by a real monk many centuries ago. Right? So I hope all these extra information put forth in a fun way will help children to enjoy the books better. Thank you.
Thank you, Yingping. What about you, Pauline? How do you think these stories are applicable to kids in this generation, especially with Romance, the Three Kingdoms? You know, there's war and turmoil, and but children these days do not have experience of any of that, at least in our this part of our country.
Thank you for that question. Yes, war can sound terrible, isn't it? But in war, there's also lots of action. And in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it's not so much a war book, but it's a book about stunts, thrills, yeah, thrills and spills. So in my book, there's a lot of fighting scenes, spear work and horse riding, yeah, and you can see from the pictures also that it's all very colorful, very lively. So from there, I hope that the children will also be fascinated and be hooked in. Yeah, and the beauty of the public series for kids is that it really is written for the age group of the 7 to 12-year-olds. Yeah, and I've also written storybooks for children of this age, and I'm also a creative writing teacher. And so what I usually do for my when I'm writing a book like the Brave Brothers, what I do is I sit my student down in front of me, and then I will start to write, and then once in a while, occasionally I will look up at the child, yeah, the imaginary child in front of me, and if they like it, yeah, then of course I will continue writing. So sometimes there are times when, as Yingping says, I will try to cram in all the historical facts, all the dates, and then some of these Chinese names, they are quite difficult to pronounce, and so I will faithfully put out all the Chinese names in one sentence, yeah, even though they are like tongue twisters, and then I will look up at my imaginary audience, and my child will be sitting there going like this. And then I will know that that is a real no-no. So even though it really pains my heart to have to, slash out whole chapters or paragraphs, that's what I would do, because in the end, I want to make, although I want to make uh, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Brave Brothers, as faithful as possible to 三国演义, yet I must remember that with a book of this size, I can only select the very best that are appealing to my young audience. And then I have to trust that in the future, at some time, they will pick up the original book for themselves and they will read it all the way through. So hopefully, my book will be a stepping stone, an introduction for them. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing those interesting thoughts, Pauline. Now, we would like to really love to hear from you both. Who are your favorite heroes and why? Ningping, would you like to start?
Thank you, Serene. Yeah, the heroes in Journey to the West are all very interesting and different from each other. So, for example, Tripitaka, who is the leader, supposedly the leader of the group, he's very determined. Okay, he'll do anything that he has to do in order to get to the West and get the scriptures. But he's also rather foolish and timid. And Zhu Bajie, he is lazy and always thinking about food. Shao Jing is steady and reliable and doesn't cause any trouble. And of course, we have Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, who is mischievous, smart, and very, very powerful. So, among these characters, if I had to choose my favorite ones, I think it would be Sun Wukong and Zhu Bajie. They were so fun to write because they are so naughty, right? Sun Wukong is cheeky and fun-loving, as we can see in the first book, Chaos in Heaven. He bullied the Dragon Kings into giving him nice clothes and weapons. He caused chaos in heaven and so on. And in book 2, he's still like that. He's still quite naughty, But we can see that he has grown to become more responsible. He takes his responsibility as Tripitaka's chief disciple very seriously, and he really goes all out to protect his master. So I like him for his character growth, how he developed as a character. And Zhu Bajie, who is the pig, right, is also very fun to write. He loves food and also often gets into trouble because of food. And even in the middle of a crisis like fighting demons, he gets a bit distracted by, food and sleeping and things like that. So he's a bit of a troublemaker, and he and Wukong often get into squabbles because they're so different. Once he even managed to persuade Tripitaka to banish Wukong, from the group. So Tripitaka is like a parent having to settle the arguments that his children have. Unfortunately, he's quite a clueless parent and doesn't realize that Bajie is spouting nonsense most of the time. So yeah, I love these two characters, Wukong and Bajie, and how they interact.
Thank you, Yingping. Such interesting characters and full of life in them. What about you, Pauline?
Yeah, thank you. Well, without a doubt, my favorite heroes in my three brave brothers are the brothers themselves. They are Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei. What are they like? In terms of age, Liu Bei is the eldest, and besides that, he is also very wise. He is a very a moral and upright person who always thinks before he acts. He is generous to a fault, and you will see that coming out in book 1 and book 2, where he even actually gets into real trouble because he just cannot say no to people's cries for help. Guan Yu is the second oldest, and among the three, to me, he is the bravest and the best fighter amongst them. And you'll be surprised to know that Guan Yu is famous throughout the world. He has statues all over the world, and he is revered not just among very upright people like the police force, but gangsters also really look up to him. So here is one man, Guan Yu, who is liked by, both the bad guys in the world and the good guys in the world. Wow. So yes, he is quite an amazing person. Then the baby of the group is Zhang Fei. But if when you watch like the movies about him and see read the character description, you realize he is no baby. He is the biggest among the three, and he has often been described as a bear because that's how big size he is. And among the three, he is the most rash. He doesn't think. Okay, he lets his sword and his spear do the talking for him. Mm. But why do I like them so much? Well, yeah, in that chapter two, Oath in the Peach Garden, well, as they were talking with each other, they start to realize that actually they had a lot of shared values, and they begin to see that they are quite their souls resonate with each other. So they felt that they couldn't just be friends, they had to be more than friends. And so what they did was they become 结拜兄弟. What it means is to become sworn brothers. And of course it's not just about the ritual of going of get becoming brothers, but they must show it in their actions as well, right? So in this one chapter, they gave all their resources away to the soldiers under them, and they were left with only one tent, a small tiny tent. How can a tiny tent fit three men? But that's what they did. They said, brothers, let's share everything. So they all crawled into the tent, and the tent was so small that you can see all their feet are sticking out, and they have no space in their tent for their weapons, so they had to park them outside. Yeah, so that is the extent of their friendship. They would share everything, and they would certainly never betray each other. What admirable characters. I hope that my readers will also enjoy reading about their friendship. Thank you.
Wow, you've intrigued me enough to get my kids to start reading these books during the holidays. Thank you, Pauline and Yingping, for sharing with us. And now we've come to the question and answer session. I will be answering some of the questions that have been submitted during the session. And the first question comes from Eddie Ong. He has asked, what is the moral lesson or takeaway you hope children will learn from reading your book? Maybe Yingping can start.
Okay, thank you for that question. A takeaway that I hope the children will get from reading Journey to the West is that of Chinese culture, because Journey to the West is one of the four great Chinese classics after all. So I tried to make this retelling as fun as possible so that children will have a positive experience with it and be inspired to go on and read more detailed versions and even the original text when they are older. And of course, through the pilgrim's experience, the children will learn various uh, values like courage, determination, loyalty, and teamwork, and so on. So even though there are moral lessons in the story, they are woven in quite in a way that doesn't make it sound like we're teaching them something. It's just a fun way for them to read and then to learn along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. What about you, Pauline? Anything to add on?
Yeah, that's right. Um, yeah, we have been taught in Writing 101 that we don't preach at our readers, but just to bring it out through the story, and hopefully the story itself will tell about the morals that we as writers hold as well. And to me, friendship and loyalty are very important tenets in my life, and I believe that it was also brought up in the Brave Brothers. But what really is loyalty? It's easy to talk about, but I think loyalty is best shown through hard times, which is what happened in the story. Cao Cao, on one occasion, captured Guan Yu, and he's rich, so he threw all kinds of goodies and temptations at Guan Yu. He gave him a great horse, he gave him new clothes, he gave him lots of treasures and gifts in order to win his friendship away from Liu Bei. But that is where loyalty came in, because Guan Yu disdained all these worldly treasures, and he held fast to his friendship with Liu Bei. And when the opportunity came, he went for it. He left because he wanted to go back to his brother Liu Bei. Yeah. So if that is a moral lesson, then I hope my readers pick it up.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pauline. Now, we have come to the last question. A very interesting question from Ruth. What English name would you give your characters if you had a chance?
Well, would you like me to answer first while Yingping
Okay,
is now thinking?
yes.
Should we talk?
Go ahead, Pauline.
Yes, yes, I'd like to do that. Thank you. Well, I think that for Liu Bei, I would like to call him Matthew. I actually dedicated my book to Matthew Fu, who is my nephew. Sorry, my nephew Matthew, because I felt that he was really a Han hero. Yeah, to the heart. Yes, and in fact, he was brought up in China during his formative years. Yeah, and he displayed a lot of kind of like upright values, integrity of character and all. And for Guan Yu, who is very big, very wise, very good in fighting. I would like to call him Lucas because actually that's the name of my son, who currently is 1.8 meters tall. So I think that out of everybody, he deserves to be a Guan Yu. Okay, those would be my answers: Matthew and Lucas.
Very interesting indeed. Yingping?
Okay. Okay, I think I'm going to get 0 marks for my answer because I'm not going to be really answering the question because I wouldn't give them English names. Now, Sun Wukong has been called monkey, in some English adaptations, and then Tu Baji has been called pixie, and Xiao Jing has been called Sandy, right? So there are all these names. But I feel that we need to give the original names of the characters as a form of respect to the original book and also as a way of educating the readers about this very important Chinese classic. So I was thinking of examples to explain what I mean, right? And we all know the very famous children's book Charlotte's Web, right? About this spider and a pig that become friends. But we wouldn't ever call, let's say if we translate the book to another language, we wouldn't ever call the pig just the pig. We'll call him Wilbur, and we won't call the spider just Spider. We'll call her Charlotte because these names are so iconic to the story. And I think Sun Wukong is not just any old monkey. He is Sun Wukong. He's the one and only Monkey King. So I feel like we need to give that name some prominence and help the next generation know about these original names. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We've come to the end of our discussion. I think it was really enjoyable and interesting to hear all these insights and the work that has gone into these books. So get your copy of these books, The Journey to the West, Romance of Three Kingdoms, as well as Yingping's first book, Journey to the West, Chaos in Heaven, as a series, Pop Lit for Kids series is available at all major bookstores and at lazada.sg. So thank you for all for joining us this evening, and we hope you have a good weekend ahead.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.